All right, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Actually, it is a solid good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the Self Mastery Challenge. I am your instructor today, and by the grace of Olodumare, I will be your instructor over the next 4 months. And I'm super excited about what we're going to cover, what we're going to experience, and hopefully what we're going to be able to carry out over the next 4 weeks. The first thing that I want to establish with this is that the Self-Mastery Challenge is framed up as a class, but in reality, it's a treatment plan, okay? And it's important that you look at it as a treatment plan as opposed to a class per se. You know, a class is strictly about gathering information. It's about maybe taking some notes, and contemplating, maybe talking about the things that you learned in the class. A treatment plan is really similar, because when you get medicine or you undergo a treatment plan, let's say you had some kind of a physical rehabilitation, you got to learn some things about your condition. You got to learn something about the tools, the equipment, the materials, and the supplies that you're going to use. So there's a learning process that goes into a treatment plan and a healing process. They overlap in that way. So as much as this is a class and we're going to impart information, it's also intended to be a treatment plan. And, you know, a treatment plan can have medicines, it can have dosages, you can have schedules and intervals, you can have the usage of the particular medicine, all of the do's and don'ts associated with the medicine. Certain medicines you take without consuming alcohol, or you don't take them before you drive, or things like that. So there are different kinds of observances that are built into the effective use of medicine. So I want you to also take the Self-Mastery Challenge as an opportunity to do things to facilitate your healing, your health, your wellness, your balance. And in particular, what we are trying to remedy is your African mind. The goal of this treatment plan is to help you to restore the African mind, your African mind. And the reason why we need to restore the African mind is because, quite honestly, the result of one of the most significant results of the colonial experience is that we have been conditioned to only see the world, and more importantly, to only see ourselves according to a Western paradigm of reality. And so it's a dilemma that we state every day, at least since the 80s, where we call ourselves African Americans, for example. And we might have a tangible understanding of what the American part is, but when it comes to the African part, we may not be as clear and definitive about what that means. And so restoring the African mind is all about being able to align your worldview and your self-image with the most original worldview for African people throughout time, right? So we have to turn to indigenous knowledge systems to even ask ourselves, what did Africans think before we came in contact with Arabs, before we came in contact with Europeans, before we came in contact with Muslims, before we came in contact with Christians? How did we see ourselves and how did we see the world? And why is that so important? It's so important from an educational and a psychological perspective because we all know the story of the ugly duckling, right? The ugly duckling, in short, is this tragic story of a swan, this beautiful and majestic creature who really sees itself as being tremendously ugly. And as a matter of fact, everybody who sees the swan, the little baby swan, they think it's so ugly because he's similar enough to the ducks to make you believe that he's a duck. But when you look at the size and you look at the way the feathers grow and the way the sound that he makes, there's nothing duckly about it. And so the ugly duckling has a warped self-perception. And it's not until the ugly duckling actually is spotted by some swans where they say, what are you doing trying to imitate ducks? Why don't you come over here and do what swans do? And then when the ugly duckling sees this flock of other swans, and he can appreciate the differences between itself and the ducks. And those are no longer pathologies. Those are no longer anomalies. He's understanding a new norm, a norm that's based upon his actual reality. And that is what I mean, in short, by restoring the African mind. Okay? And so that is fundamental as a starting point to self-mastery. Because if your concept of self is foreign, then what you're trying to master is never going to pan out for you, is it? It's like they say, if you have a map of Chicago and you're trying to navigate Los Angeles, no matter how good your attitude is, no matter how great your work ethic is, that map is not going to serve you. And so when we look at the concept of self-mastery, we need a proper roadmap. And we need a proper understanding of the territory itself. So this is crucial to our ability to restore the African mind. We have to start from a clear understanding of what the self is from an African perspective. All right. Now, restoring the African mind is not going to be a one-stop shop. You're not going to just go from 0 to 100. So it's important that on this journey that you understand the treatment plan is what's going to help you put you into a position of self-mastery, because from the position or the location of self-mastery, you're going to be in a better position to then make the decisions that will confidently and consistently lead you toward restoring your African mind. So self-mastery is a checkpoint on the journey to restoring the African mind. All right. So that being said, I want to give you an overview of what this treatment plan consists of. All right. The first element of this treatment plan is helping us to get an understanding of what this thing, the self, is. What's the raw material of the self? Okay. And that's where we deal with our topic today, which is going to be Ori, the Egungun or ancestors, identity, and destiny. Okay. If you can understand those, it's going to help you to, it's going to put us all on the same page. Basically, that's the goal with this first lesson, is to just put us all on the same page as it pertains to what is the self? What are we working with here? Okay. And as we go through the process, there are two things that I want from you. Okay. Firstly, I want you to be listening on two levels. I want you to listen on two levels. Okay. Level one is personally. I want you to be thinking about how the lessons and the information that I'm presenting to you, how does it matter to you? How does it resonate with you? How does it square with your understanding of things? That's the first thing. The second level I want you to listen on is on a collective level. Hey, how does this lesson apply to my family? My brothers, my sisters, my mother, my father, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. How does it pertain to the people in my broader community? The city where I live, the school where I go, where I work, the people I socialize with. How does this resonate with conversations that I'm having with my friends and my family about different subjects, about the political climate, about the state of the economy, about healthcare? Like, just when you think about all of the things that are a part of your everyday life and the people you share your life with, how does this particular lesson resonate with the things that are contemporary for you right now. All right. So that's what I want from you. I really want you to listen for yourself, and I want you to listen to the other people who matter most to you. All right. And the second thing that I want you to do is I want you to give me high marks on the evaluation. All right. I want to get better at what I'm doing. That's my motto, is getting better. So in an effort to get better, I'm going to share with you an evaluation, short evaluation. It'll take you 3 minutes max. Okay. And I want you to give me some feedback on the few questions that there are. And that will help me to make this a more meaningful experience for you and the good people who will be exposed to you in the wake of this activity. All right, so let's get into it. When we're talking about the self, right, there's some basic things that I want to establish to get us grounded. Like I said, to put us all on the same page. The self. All of us, right, all of us who have a self to master and to be aware of, only are aware of it because we are alive. Right? So the self is associated with being alive. So the self is associated with being alive. You know you have a self right now because you are alive. That means you exist. You have a consciousness. You have an identity. That is fundamental. And the only way you came to be alive was because two people merged. You have a mother and you have a father. The merger of those two people is what enabled you to inherit the life force. You have inherited your existence from your father and your mother. The only reason you have a self is because you have inherited your selfhood from your mother and your father. That's really important. That's really important. So we could argue about the self from philosophical perspectives. We could argue about the self from religious perspective. We could argue about the self from different scientific perspectives. But there's the bottom line, absolute fact for every single person that I'm talking to right now, everybody who's hearing this message, your selfhood, the fact that you are alive, has been bequeathed to you by your mother and your father. Right? The conduit to yourself is your parents. And then, because that is also true of all of your parents, then yourself is connected to your parents, and your parents are then in turn connected to their parents, and their parents are connected to their parents. So then we start getting into the obvious natural chronological relationship between yourself and how you have inherited it from your ancestors. So yourself is tied directly to all the thousands of selves that have existed before you, going back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 generations. That's super important for you as an African, because, again, we're talking about the ugly duckling syndrome. If we're going to talk about restoring the African mind, and we understand that in order to restore the African mind, you need to go back to the template. You need to go back to the original blueprint. And that is coming directly from your parentage and your lineage and your ancestry. So there can be no discussion of the self independent of your African ancestry. Okay? And so today is so fantastic because we have things like AfricanAncestry.com where you can go and there are the evidence of the specific African ethnicities that have contributed to your existence can be found out. You can see beyond the shadow of a doubt that you have descended from African people. And traces of their identity has been passed down through your bloodline. So an integral part of yourself has been inherited through your bloodline and is inseparable from your original ancestors, as far back as you want to go. Okay? So for those of us who practice Orisha lifestyle, this begins with our Ori. Because of this reason, you can understand why Ori is super duper integral to our practice. Why Ori is revered above all other deities. Because we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that our identity, our existence, our consciousness, all of those are housed in Ori, which would be physically known as the head. And we know that that has been passed down from our parents and our grandparents and so forth. And this is carried out in the culture almost universally. How so? When a person is, even before a person is born, while the child is still in embryo, the mother and the father are going to go and they're going to appease the ancestors. They're going to appease the ancestors on the maternal side. They're going to appease the ancestors on the paternal side. They may do both. They may do one or the other. But it is best practice to appease the ancestors because we practice or we have a belief in reincarnation, rebirth. And so we appease our ancestors because we recognize that even though the individual is going to have their own Ori, we know that it's the ancestors who are caring for that soul in the prenatal state. We know it is one of the ancestors that's going to return from the prenatal state and be born into our lineage. So when a child is in embryo, best practice within the culture and within the tradition is to appease the ancestors one way or another. You could go to the ancestral shrine. You could go and you could bring out the ancestral masquerade. There's all these different ways in which a person, even in present times, is going to acknowledge the ancestors in direct connection with the arrival of an individual soul. Right? So our identity is inextricable from our ancestry. Our individual identity is inseparable from our collective ancestry. That's really, really important as a starting point for the self. Because from a Western perspective, it's going to be easier to see yourself as a complete individual. And perhaps you have some biological connection to your forefathers and foremothers. Maybe you have the same blood type. Maybe you are subject to the same kinds of diseases. If you're African American, then you know that we are going to get tested for sickle cell. If you're from Cambodia, or if you're from Persia, or you're from Mexico, highly unlikely that they're going to be testing you for sickle cell. So we know from a biological perspective that we inherit certain things from our ancestors through our bloodline. But above and beyond the biological fact is the aspect of identity and the aspect of purpose even. Those things are baked into our understanding of what the ancestors are and what Ori is. It's important. It's very important just to start the treatment plan for you to understand how important both of them are in the process of supporting you becoming a whole person, you being able to optimize all of your natural gifts and talents and really show up as fully as possible. So, of course, one of our favorite stories that epitomizes this really gives us a sense of our active duty to our ancestors in order for us to show up and perform our personal, duties and our functions. And that, of course, comes out of Ologbomeji or Turupomeji, which happens to be the Odu of the year that came from Ile-Ife. So when Baba Araba and I were in Ile-Ife during the Ifa festival, they cast Oturupomeji, as you probably know, if you're following what's going on. But Baba Araba chanted several verses during that ceremony. But one of my favorite verses, absolutely, actually, my favorite verse of Oturupomeji tells us of Oyekpolu. Oyekpolu, was born into a priestly family, but for whatever reason, Oyekbolu ignored the call, and Oyekbolu refused to learn the different ways to venerate the ancestors. And he waited so long that his parents both returned to the realm of the ancestors without him being able to perform any of the rites. And it was then that the people called upon Oyekbolu as the one who had inherited this duty and this particular knowledge and this ritual specialization. It was when they called Oyekbolu to stand before the community and perform the ancestral rites that he realized how significant his negligence was. Because he looked out over all the ingredients and he could see all of the people in the community who were depending upon him to sort of open up the floodgates of ancestral veneration and keep it going for, to keep the switchboard open, so to speak, for the community. And he realized, I recognize all the ingredients, I just don't know what to do. And then in a plaintive cry, he called out to his ancestors, you who are the dwellers of heaven, come and support me, assist me in carrying out these rites. If it's water I need to give first, I don't know. Dwellers of heaven, come and support me in carrying out this ritual. If it's gin, if it's palm oil, if it's cola nut, if it's bitter cola that I'm supposed to offer, I don't know. Please descend and help me to execute this ritual. And fortunately for him, the ancestors heard his cry. He called out to them and they responded. And they told him, Oyekbolu, this is what you should do first. This is what you should do second. This is what you should do third. And Oyekbolu was able to execute the ritual effectively and thereby make it possible for the rest of the community to connect with their ancestors. And so I love that particular verse because in the same way that I'm trying to convey to you, this treatment plan requires for you to make the connection between you and your ancestors. It's also important for you to understand the relationship between your ancestors and my ancestors, your ancestors and your neighbor's ancestors. All of our ancestors need to be flourishing. We all need to have a clearly understood relationship to our particular lineages. And we need to understand that all of our lineages are integral and they've got to be active. They've got to be activated. They've got to be charged up and they got to be coming out and delivering messages to our lineages. It's integral to the well-being of our community. And this was so powerful also when I was in Abeokuta in May. And May happens to be the May-June timeframe is where most of the Egungun masquerades come out, right? And one of the things that I learned this time was that the Egungun, the elders of all the lineages, let me back up a little bit. You got to understand what this means in like really practical terms. When you get to Nigeria, you get to Yoruba land, you're talking about traditional land. You're talking about ancestral land. You're talking about the places where people live in Yoruba land. They have all lived there for thousands of years. So when you go into a neighborhood, you're talking about lineages that have been in this area for generation after generation after generation after generation. And the people are buried in their family houses, on their family land. So traditionally, there aren't cemeteries. You bury the people on the family land. And you venerate the ancestors on the family land. So you're going to venerate your father. You're going to venerate your grandfather. You're going to venerate your great-grandfather. You're going to go right out in front of the house where they used to live. And you're going to make the offerings right there. And you're going to invoke them where they are physically buried. Which is also where their grandfathers and grandmothers and uncles and all those people are also buried right there in your community. The whole community is set up like that. So the elders, who are the representative of all these different lineages, are going to meet at a determined, a certain determined point of the year. And they're going to say, these are all the lineages in our community. And this is the calendar. This is the schedule at which all of your Egungun masquerades are going to come out. Everybody who's in this area, your ancestors come out at this time. Everyone who's in that area, your ancestors will come out that time. And they schedule it so all the ancestors come out. That's how important the ancestors are. So when Oyekbolu fails to do his part, it means That the others aren't, he's created a backlog, and the other ancestral masquerades aren't going to be able to come out. And if they aren't able to come out, they can't give their healing messages. They can't convey the directions from beyond. I know about this sickness that you got, and you need to do this to get healthy. I know about this problem between your brother and your sister. You all got to work it out like this. I know that your child is struggling with A, B, and C. It's important that you do this for them and stop feeding them A, B, and C. This is what's happening when the ancestors come down. The last time I was there, when I went before the masquerade, they conveyed messages to me. Very important messages. As a matter of fact, one of the key messages that they gave me was that I needed to venerate my Ori. You need to ask your Ori whatever it wants. And whatever your Ori asks is what you're going to have to give. My Ori wanted a ram and a whole bunch of other things. And I had to put on all new clothing and sacrifice a nice big ram for my Ori. The ancestors told me that I needed to venerate my Ori. So it's, again, reinforcing this connection. How one feeds the other. So when we talk about working the raw material of the self with the intention to master this raw material, we got to understand that you're not a standalone. You're not an isolated, free-floating radical. You are directly connected to your ancestors. And the stronger your bond to your ancestors, the more effectively you're going to have all the resources that you need to show up and show out and do the things that you are destined to do. Okay? So your identity is your actual destiny. Your identity is your destiny. That thing that you have inherited and all of the natural gifts and talents that are yours, those are the things that you're going to refine. And those are the things that you're going to demonstrate. Those are the things that you're going to reveal. But that identity is only brought to its maximum impact to the degree that you can focus and tap in to this vast body of knowledge and skill and insights that have come to you through your ancestors for hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of years. Self-mastery is made easier by drawing upon all of the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience that is passed down through your lineage, through your ancestry, through your parentage. Okay? So that's our first lesson. All right? That's our very first lesson. And the only thing that I want you to do is I want you to give some thought to this lesson and specifically examine how this particular lesson and this point of departure speaks to your condition. Secondly, how does this particular, what are the implications of this lesson for your broader community, your extended family, as well as, like I said, the community in which you belong to. All right. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share with you a link. Actually, I'm going to share in the comment section a link. And this link is going to tie you to the evaluation. And what I'd like you to do is just take a few minutes, complete the evaluation. You know, I want all fives, but if it's not all fives, then you give me what really is true for you. And we'll sign in next week for our next lesson, which is going to talk about the relationship between divination, sacrifice, observances, and medicine, and how those four elements together help us to heal, right? Because there sometimes are some discrepancies between, you know, within our own order, within our own personal existence. Sometimes there's some differences and some things that are discrepancy between us and our ancestors or us and our broader community. Divination, sacrifice, observances, and medicine help us to heal and restore the balance in those ways so that you're more, you're better equipped to do what I was describing before, which is tap in to the wisdom and the knowledge. But for right now, I just want to give you this evaluation. So look at the comment section and give me your feedback there. And if you want to start learning more about what I'm teaching here, please visit me at obafemio.com or orishalifestyle.com. Look for an enrollment opportunity in the School of Orisa Studies or in one of the many classes that I have. Or if a class is a little bit more than you're ready to commit to right now, then check out my publications. I have a variety of books that will also help you bridge your understanding and get a deeper understanding of what Orisa Lifestyle is about. But until next time, thank you very much for your support, and I look forward to meeting you all and working with you soon to help bring about the good condition for yourselves and those who you are destined to serve. Bye for now, everybody. Odabo.